Kikai Sentai Zenkaiger. The 45th anniversary of Super Sentai has now wrapped up, and I think I can give some final thoughts on it. I really hope I can, or else this video is going to be real bad. And I want to take y'all back to about a year ago when I made this video and thought that racism was going to play a huge part in this series. And I was right. Kind of just at the beginning of the end. See, the beginning, everyone was really kind of, let's say, not pleasant to the Kikainoids, mainly because the Toji Tendo who were invading their world. Where in the end, it's God saying everyone should be separate and he doesn't want these worlds to live together, even though Kaito is the one staring that in the face and saying, no, I've met these people, they are my friends, and we deserve to be happy together. And that's really what the beginning and end of this season is all about. At the start, Kaito's making friends with all these Kikainoids that can't really find their place in this new world, and in the end he's using the memories of his friends to literally fight God. I don't want to dwell on the ending too much because I do think it wrapped up what we were presented in the beginning with very well. It's just the middle happened. The middle was a very long stretch of time that happened. While I will say I enjoyed the middle quite a lot, I think each episode was fun in its own right and kept the excitement, the joy going. I even have a story I'll share at the end of the video. I do think there were some parts that were just kind of dropped out of nowhere. Namely in the portion where we have to go looking for Kaito's mom and we start jumping from world to world. The show just felt like it was about to kick it into another gear at that point. Like this new multiverse traveling trope was going to be part of every single episode going forward, but it stops in 2. I'm sorry, I just looked it up. It's one episode. One episode where they travel to 7 different worlds, and this ties into the ending when Kaito tells God he's been to these worlds, he's seen these people, he's made all these friends, but we've seen it for one episode to 7 different worlds, and it just feels very empty when you remember it that way. Kaito's mom disappears at this, and we're told that he will keep looking for her, but we don't see her again until the very end. In fact, his dad has to go looking for her because Kaito and the other Zenkaigers just are busy defending this one world. That, mind you, was the only other world besides Kikaitopia at the beginning of this series that wasn't sealed away until Kaito and the Zenkaigers started saving each one at the end of every episode. But this is where the biggest problem I have with Zenkaiger stems from, and that's it kind of made a big promise and then did nothing with it. The opening of this season is this amazing visual of the Toji Gears coming down and sealing away the worlds of other Sentai members. It says in that first episode that they have to be saved from being sealed away in the Toji Gears, and one might think this is where the anniversaryness of it all comes in, but it doesn't. Zenkaiger sets itself up as a show of a Sentai team that has to save the worlds of other Sentai teams, but the worlds of the other Sentai teams never come into play one by one. It's always smashed together and all at the same time for some kind of story reason. And while the Sentai Gears are a fun gimmick each episode, they ultimately feel kind of head scratchy when you remember that most of these teams are still sealed away. I can be very hard on the plot of Zenkaiger. In fact, I will be for years to come, but I think the thing that really makes this show is what makes most Sentai, and that's the characters. Oh boy, when this season first started, there were so many people, myself included, who thought it was going to be really hard to connect with characters that weren't human, that didn't have facial features or expressions, or just robots. And I'm not talking about robots like Izu and the Humi Gears, I'm talking about robot-y looking robots. Juran, Gaon, Vrun, Majin, they all got introduced in their own way, which was great and helped us connect with these characters, but I was really worried about going on how we would continue to deal with them not being like you and me. And that's where I missed the whole point that the show had been trying to teach me from the beginning, is that they were like you and me. No matter what they look like, no matter how they talked, how they walked, whether they be Kikainoids or SD bots, they were heroes. They were Sentai as we know them from 45 years before and 45 years on. And I swear if there's someone in the comment section that's like, oh, they said Sentai might be canceled next year, no more 45 years, just unsubscribe right now. My point is I stopped judging these characters off of the way they talked, the way they looked, and started judging them based on their actions. Juran being the old, kind soul who's lived through it all and wants you to live through it as well, but will push you and guide you in the right direction. Gaon, the young hero that's disconnected from his own kind, doesn't feel like he belongs and doesn't even feel comfortable in his own skin. Majin, ever clumsy and nervous, but still known to be a hothead when you piss her off. And Vroon, the definition of curiosity killed the cat, and a bit cowardly early on. But all these heroes, with the addition of Kaito, prop each other up, accentuate each other's strengths, hide each other's faults, and become one of the most lovable teams in a long time. I do think they're one of the more inept Sentai teams that we've had in a while, but that's a discussion for another day. Filling out the Zenkaigers, we have 2Kaiser himself in Zox, and he comes into this story being a complete badass from the start. He's got two goals. He's got two goals in mind: to steal stuff and break this curse that had been put on his brothers that turned him into little SD bots. They are freaking adorable. And that's all he wants. He doesn't want to be friends, he doesn't want to be teammates, and he goes on for a while thinking this way until he realizes that having these teammates and these friends is not a weakness. In fact, the Zenkaigers make him better. In the anti-hero corner, we have one of the best evil Sentai we've gotten in a long time in Stay Caesar. And calling him an evil Sentai doesn't even do it justice. These two for me were the best characters in the series and had some of the most heartfelt character focused episodes of the whole show. Zox is pretty much this carefree pirate, so to see shots of him in the rain, blood coming down his face with a sword just completely stone faced, it triggers something. The same goes for Stacy, who we had seen be mad for most of the series, crack a smile. And I can't mention Heart in this show without talking about Ya-chan, because she's just, she's a grandma. I miss my grandma. Look at her. She's amazing. All in all, Zenkaiger was a fun season full of a lot of lows, but highs that greatly outweighed them. And I think if I were to give it a score overall, I'd probably go between 6.5 and 7 range, but there's something for me personally that makes it a 10. Back in October, my first child was born, and for about 8 weeks there, whether it was her or my wife, we spent a couple of days every week in the hospital for some kind of complication. And with COVID happening, I usually had to run back and forth between the two, transferring milk or just myself, and sort of struggling to be there for both of them. And this started with the episode with the Toji Tendo school and ran all the way through the Hakaiser arc with Kaito's dad. And everything's better now, don't get me wrong, but I will say it was one of the hardest moments in my life, and in that time, once a week, I got to sit down and this incredible group of idiots made me laugh. They made me cry too. I cried a lot during those episodes, but I laughed, and I was able to breathe in what felt like just drowning underwater. So for that, and I understand it's a very personal reason and probably has nothing to do with anyone else watching this video, but for me personally, Zenkaiger will always be a 10 in my book. So to Kaito, Juron, Gaon, Majin, Vroom, Zox, Flint, Stacy, Ya-chan, Sechan, thank you.